If you followed along with our previous videos, then you now have your packages set up for your chatty program. So you've got your callback package, your receiver package, and your sender package. Inside the callback package, all we did was we created this callback interface. Now, an interface is not a class. Classes make objects, but interface is a way of making any object that you create behave in certain ways. And so anything that implements this callback interface has to behave by getting the message and doing something with it. More on that later, but we're going to use that for our receiver in a moment. Our sender is our GUI front end. So when you type something here into the chat line and press send, it's going to send that to whoever you're chatting to's receiver. And likewise, they will have a sender, and when they send something from this text box here, it's going to come in through your receiver. So the first thing we should do is actually make the receiver. I said in the last video that it's pretty much the same as the server from Date Server. Now we're going to use this code here from try all the way down to this curly brace here. Now it's important, it gets a bit confusing down here with lots of curly braces, but catch is the last statement in this server, and you can see after the catch I've got an open curly brace. That means this closing curly brace here is going to be the end of the catch. So we want everything from there all the way up to the try part of the try catch block. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that now so that I can save it later in my receiver. So I've got that all in memory. We are going to make some changes about what happens here when we run this as a receiver. Instead of just printing it up to the screen, it's actually going to send it back to the chatty front end here so that you can put whatever it's received up here as a message. So we're going to achieve two things today. We're going to create the receiver class, and we're going to get your send working. Now to create the receiver class, nice and easy, go to the receiver package, right click, new class, and we're going to call it receiver with a capital R. Now this one we don't want to have a public static void main method. We're going to do something slightly different with this one. I'll show you what that is in a moment, and then I'm going to let you go to figure out the rest of it. So I'm going to create the receiver class, and you can see, I'll just zoom that up a bit, that it's just an empty class. There's absolutely nothing in that. Alright, if we're going to be part of that whole client server stuff we were doing before, we have to import a few things. We have to import java.net.star. We have to import java.io.star, just like we did before. But we're going to import one more thing. We're going to import our callback packages, everything, which of course is just the callback interface. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up what are called member variables. Now these happen between these curly braces in this block of code inside the public class receiver definition. So right here, I'm going to press tab once so it's indented, and we're going to make these private member variables. The first one is going to be of type callback, which is the interface we wrote before, and we're just going to call that chatty. So this is our way of talking back to our chatty front end. This is our way of our receiver saying, hey, I've got a message, all right, and I'm going to send it through to you. So this chatty is going to be this chatty here that we're talking about. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to make this work for any socket. Now remember, a socket is the IP number and port, and we do know that Adam had to use a different port to the rest of us. So we're going to make it so that we can use any port from for this particular receiver. So we're going to make another private member variable. It's just going to be a simple integer, and it's going to be the port number. So those are our member variables. Now the next thing we do is we're going to create a public constructor of the receiver class. Now this is a way that we can create this class and give it this reference to chatty that we talked about before and this port number. And we simply do that by saying we're going to give you a reference to a callback class called chatty and an integer called port. Now you'll notice that this callback chatty is exactly what we've got here. This import is exactly what we've got here. Now I could have changed these names, but we have a special way in Java of dealing with things when we've got two things of the same name like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to, from our chatty front end, we're going to say to the receiver, hey, I'm going to be your callback and I'm running on port, whatever it is, 6013 or something. Okay? And it's going to say, okay, I'm going to remember that you are my callback. You are the thing I have to send the message to. And I'm going to remember what your port is. All right, let's jump down to here. Now, to make this version of the chatty, what we say is literally this chatty. So the chatty for this class, this object, is going to equal the chatty you just sent me. And you see how it's highlighting those two together. If I click on this guy, it highlights those two so I know which chatty is which. So this is always going to be the member variable. And if I don't put the this, it's going to be the local version. Don't forget your semicolons. And likewise, I'm going to say this dot port equals the local port that was just sent to me. So that's our constructor, just going off the screen a little bit. I'll just make it a fraction smaller. Now we're only going to do one more method for this, and it's simply going to be a run method, public void run. But before we can do that, we actually have to go back up to where it says public class receiver here and say that this implements a thing called runnable. Now what that means is that this thing is actually going to run parallel to our chatty front end. This is actually going to run on what's called a separate thread. I'll talk about those when we're together again. But it means it can sit there running happily in the background like you're running two different programs on your computer. One program being your chatty front end and the other one being your receiver. To do that in Java, we simply have to implement this thing called runnable. Now it's giving an error message, and the error message is simply that if you implement runnable, you have to have a run method, and we don't have that yet. So let's go down here to this gap that we made, and we're going to implement our run method. And it's a nice simple one. It's just public void, because we don't want to return a value, and it's the run method. Now that we've actually got that definition there, we don't even have to do anything in it. You can see that it's happy now. It's not giving that error message. So whatever we do inside run now is what's going to happen when this whole class runs. And we're going to get chatty to actually run this class. Send it off on its own thread. Okay, this is where your server code goes. Okay, that's the first thing we needed to do. So we got receiver ready to go. We're going to fix that up a little later. Now what we need to do is chatty, and I'm going to let you do this part yourself. What I want to happen is when I type a message in here, then hit the send, it's got to do two things. It sends that message to the other person's receiver, and to test it we're just going to use our own receiver, but it sends that message to the other person's receiver, but it also needs to put that message up here in this box. So I'm going to let you figure out how to get the message from there to there when I press this button. Now I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to go away and actually do that so you can see it working, but I'm not going to show you my code. There's a couple little tricks in it, but it's exactly what we've been doing so far. Once we've got that working, we're ready then to connect this to the receiver. And if you remember in date server, in the client, the code is going to be pretty much the same as what we had in the date client here, this stuff in the middle here. So the code is pretty much going to be that, plus the code to put it up into this box here. Right, I'm going to pause the video there. I'm going to come back and show you mine working, and that's what your job is for today. Okay, I have that working now, so if we give it a run now, to give it a run, of course, make sure chatty is your target up here, and that you've got run, none of the other options there, debug or coverage, and we're going to hit the green arrow. If chatty doesn't appear anywhere in this list of things that we can run, then hit this one first while chatty is your current open file. Hit that one first and it'll do the same thing, and it will also put it up into this drop down box for you. So I'm going to hit run. I'm going to click in here and type in a message. So when I hit send, what I want to do is take that message from here, put it up here, like that. Now you noticed I've also put the word me in front of it because it's what I've typed. I guess you could figure out how to make that aligned over here so it looks more like modern day chats where the person talking to you is on the right hand side, the left hand side, sorry, and you're on the right hand side. But notice something else that happened. It also cleared out this TXT message, and it also made TXT message the current field ready to type again. So I don't have to keep going click to type and then typing in my next message, and moving over and hitting send. Now, getting send to work automatically like on an enter key is a little bit more complex. We'll look at that together. But all your job is for today is taking this message, just like we did with the old date server swing that we did the other day, and popping it up into this box here, clearing that. And I'll give you a hint, you can Google how to make this grab the focus after you've hit the send button. That's your task, and that one's one you have to do yourself. We'll have a look together next week, but for now, that's it. Create your receiver, copy and paste your server code into it, so we can fix that all up later, and then get chatty working on your own. Help each other out, don't give up, keep going until you get it working. Have fun.